Hello, I'm Matteo, the Chief Mobile Opinionist here at Tech Travel Geeks. And today we're going to do a side-by-side comparison between the Honor 90 smartphone, this premium mid-range smartphone from Honor in 2023, and the Google Pixel 7a. On paper, they seem to be direct competitors, but let's see side by side what the differences and similarities are. Now, both these devices launched in May 2023. They both feature basically premium smartphone feature sets, but differ quite significantly. One of the key ways you can notice this is in the display itself. So as you can see, both devices in this case are running Android. Both are devices in the £449 price range, but in actual fact, the Google Pixel 7a is smaller. It has a flat screen, and it doesn't look as flashy as the Honor 90, in my personal opinion. Though in the coral colorway, this orangey red colorway, I really do quite enjoy it. Google have done a good thing of doubling down on their industrial design for the last couple of generations with the visor element, whereas Honor are on the third iteration of this design language that we've seen on the Honor 50, on the Honor 70, and now on the Honor 90. In Europe, we only seem to be getting the odd tens releases. But as you can see, the Honor 90 has a little bit of a matte finish back. It is, in my view, deceptively slim and easy to hold because of its curving. Now, when I say curving, the Honor 90 has a curved back and curved front. Essentially what this does is it tricks you into believing that it's a slimmer device than it actually is. Construction here is all plastic, so it's plastic structure, plastic back, and yes, it does have a hardened front. It does have a Corning Gorilla Glass front, but it is deceptive in the way that it makes you feel that it's smaller. Now, the display on the Honor 90 is a 6.7 inch one. So you can see that here, it's 6.7 inches, and it has that cut up out in the middle of the top of the screen, the notch for the selfie camera. And as you can see, the bezels, because of the curves, are practically non-existent. And the same at the top, the display actually curves into the edge. Industrial design-wise, the Honor 90 is definitely a winner here. Whereas the Google Pixel keeps, the Pixel 7a keeps things simple. You have slightly thicker bezels. It is a smaller display. So this is a 6.1 inch display. Again, you have a cutout for your selfie camera at the top here, a notch, but it is a slightly more simple industrial design with a flat screen, slightly thicker bezels, but it does have a metal structure around it, which is slightly curved, and a plastic back with that metal visor at the top. So it is a very personal thing which design you prefer. I have to say, the Google Pixel 7a has its advantages. Having a flat screen avoids accidental touches, maybe getting used to typing on a screen with curves. It's a simpler industrial design, which is very functional, and some people do prefer that. I have to say, in some situations, especially when, say, out at night and using my smartphone isn't the primary thing I'm doing, I like to have an experience like this. But in day-to-day use, where I use my smartphone heavily, I have to say the industrial design of the Honor 90 is something I do quite enjoy. So industrial design-wise, quite interesting overall setup. They are in the same price range. I will say that the Google Pixel 7a feels a little bit more solid with that metal structure on it, but that's comes at the cost of weight. Despite being a smaller smartphone, it is around about the same weight as the Honor 90. Great, so we've talked about industrial design. Let's talk about the cameras. We've already looked at the two notches here, the Honor and the Pixel have similar layouts for their selfie notches. Now, selfie cameras, the Honor 90 has a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Sorry, no, apologies. The Google Pixel 7a has a 13 megapixel selfie camera. That's capable of recording 4K at 30 frames per second. Whereas the Honor 90 has a 50 megapixel selfie camera. That's capable as well as running 4K at 30 frames per second. And we'll explain why when we speak about the chipsets running the two devices. But both are very capable selfie cameras. I would say the Google Pixel 7a has the edge because it has better computational photography, in my personal opinion. But the Honor 90 is a very capable selfie camera. Now, round on the back, you'll see that there's significantly different modules. Google have gone with this visor setup, and the main camera here is a 64 megapixel sensor, which has optical image stabilization, whereas the Honor 90 is a 200 megapixel sensor, which does not have optical image stabilization. And I'm afraid here that the Honor 90 does lose out to the Pixel in terms of the main camera output. If you haven't already, you can check out my personal Instagram, which is linked to in the description to this video. I've posted pictures using both phones. I've tagged the pictures with the name of the phones. You can see that in general, the Google Pixel 7a just outputs pictures more easily that are more usable. That's not to say the camera on the Honor 90 is bad. That 200 megapixel sensor offers quite a bit of flexibility when it comes to zooming with digital crop, but you have to take a little bit more time and put in a little bit more effort to taking similar quality to pictures to the Google Pixel 7a, which is just simple point and shoot and often outputs really, really good pictures. Now, moving on, the other camera on the Google Pixel 7a is, in this case, an ultra-wide sensor. It's a 13 megapixel camera. It's not as good as the main one, but it is a decent ultra-wide camera. Whereas the Honor 90 has a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. Both these cameras are a step down from the main sensor. The colors are a little bit more muted, but overall I would say they're on a par in terms of taking those landscape pictures or making your cats look like giants. Okay then, so we've covered those two. There is one thing that the Honor has on paper, which in actual practice I've not seen any advantage to. And that is a third lens here. The Honor 90 has that third camera, and in this case it is a 2 megapixel depth sensor. It's supposed to help with portrait pictures, but in general the computational photography on the Google Pixel 7a does take better portrait pictures, and all round the cameras on the Pixel 7a are easier to use and produce better pictures, in my opinion. Obviously, if you disagree, you can leave a comment in the section below. We'll make sure we get back to you on that. But that's my opinion here, is when it comes to the camera department, the Google Pixel 7a wins. Great, so we've covered cameras. The reason computational photography might be slightly better on the Pixel 7a is probably down to the chipset. So the Google Pixel 7a is using the flagship Google Tensor 2 chip. So this is the same chipset as in the Google Pixel 7 Pro and the Google Pixel 7. There's no compromise here. And pair that with Google software, the Google Pixel 7a, in my opinion, is a more capable device. The Honor 90 is a very capable device, but there is one thing that's important to bear in mind, is that the Google Pixel 7a is a device which has this flagship chip, slightly smaller body, and also has a slightly smaller battery. It's a 4,385 milliampere battery. Whereas the Honor 90 has the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 chipset, so a premium mid-range chipset from Qualcomm, which has been heavily tuned to work well on the Honor 90. And paired with a 5000 milliamp hour battery, it is a battery champ in comparison. In my personal view, the Google Pixel 7a is great. It gives you all-day battery life, but the Honor 90 gives you all-day heavy use battery life. I personally find the Honor 90 battery life to be really, really good. So on battery longevity and overall performance in everyday tasks, I'll say that the Honor 90 is a definite winner here. Now, obviously displays are important, an important factor in the battery life. Obviously with a larger display it uses more battery, but that's handled well by Honor. The Google Pixel 7a has a 120 Hz display. The Google Pixel 7a has a 90 Hz display, whereas the Honor has a 120 Hz display. Important difference. So the Honor's display can go at a higher refresh rate, which may be useful in certain situations and apps. In general, for most people, you won't notice the difference between the two. Now, other important thing to bear in mind is that the displays are two different resolutions. So the Google Pixel 7a is a Full HD Plus display. It's 1080 by 2400 pixels, whereas the Honor 90 has a little bit few more pixels on that larger screen. It's 1200 pixels wide, and it is 2664 pixels high. So it is a slightly better resolution screen. Now, with default settings to save battery and give you a better overall experience, Honor will scale that resolution up and down when needed. Whereas the Google Pixel 7a is pretty much fixed at that. Refresh rate is dynamic by default on both. You can have the refresh rate go up and down. But it is displays where the Honor 90 really shines. That is a premium display that is definitely for a more expensive smartphone. So display-wise, the Honor 90 is a great device. Now, in terms of other specs, if you're using it in day-to-day use, they're very, very similar. The key difference is the battery life. Sorry, not only the battery life, just the overall experience. So the two phones use different versions of Android. Google have their own Android version, which is the Google Pixel Experience version. Some people like to call this stock Android. I do not believe it so. Google's stock is the Android open source project experience. The Pixel experience brings a lot more to the table. Whereas Honor use Magic OS. Now it's called Magic OS. It used to be called Magic UI, but it's Honor's own Android distribution with its own setup. It's a bit different in terms of how you interact with it, where buttons are, but overall very, very similar experience. What I would say is the Honor in its menu systems and its setup systems is more colourful, it's a bit more squirkly, it's a different experience. And both devices have their own set of exclusive apps and features. The key ones are obviously in the camera app and in a few other system settings options. Google is a bit more Spartan, more straightforward, arguably more easy to use. Honor is definitely a tweaker's heaven, as in you can tweak it and set it up to be the way you like it as much as you like. So the two operating systems are different. Now, we haven't had the Honor 90 long enough to make a clear judgment on software updates. Honor historically are quite good at updates, but nowhere near as good as Google with monthly security updates. And with the Pixel, you'll always get the latest version of Android as soon as it comes out. It is really an advantage for the Google Pixel 7a. Having said that, if you prefer Magic OS, it is something that a lot of people prefer, is having that extra customization on top of it. The only issue there is that it's to be seen what security updates are like, and it's to be seen what the overall software support will be like over a couple of years. Right, we've discussed the two batteries. In terms of charging, the two phones have a very, very different setup. Now, the Honor 90 supports 66 watt charging. That's really, really fast. You can go from around about 10 to 80% charge in less than half an hour on the Honor 90 in my experience. Whereas the Google Pixel 7a supports slower charging. In this case, it's 18 watt charging. It's definitely a slower charging experience. Paired with the fact it's a smaller battery, it does mean that in day-to-day use, you do get a little bit extra battery anxiety using the Pixel 7a. That's probably why I've got the screen slightly dimmer and use the device a little bit less. Now, one big advantage the Pixel 7a has that the Honor 90 doesn't have is wireless charging. You can pop the Google Pixel 7a down on a wireless charger and it will charge, whereas the Honor 90 doesn't. Both do have those plastic backs that would enable it, but it's obviously a cost-saving exercise by Honor. There's no wireless charging on the Honor 90. In terms of all the other specs, both devices have storage that is not expandable. The Google Pixel 7a keeps things simple. There's only one storage amount, that's 128 gigabytes of storage, and you can only get one memory option, which is 8 gigabytes of RAM. Whereas the Honor 90 has quite a selection, and there'll be different options depending on the market you're in, and there's different options at different price points. The base model is 256 gigabytes of storage, so double that of the Google Pixel 7a, and with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it goes all the way up to 512 gigabytes of storage with 16 gigabytes of RAM. Double check which version you're getting in your country, because this is an area where the Honor definitely wins in terms of options, but also the entry-level version has a lot more to offer there. Great, so we've covered all the basics. The main sensor on the Pixel, just in case I got it wrong, was 64 megapixel one, whereas the main sensor on the Honor 90 is a 200 megapixel one. Bear in mind that on paper that looks great, but in actual fact, in day-to-day use, I do prefer the Google Pixel 7a output. Now, which is the better smartphone overall? I would take a very large grain of salt about what I'm about to say, but it also is very, very subjective to you as a person, what is going to be your use of the device and what your overall lifestyle is like. Now, between the two devices, if I only had to have one smartphone, I would probably go for the Honor 90. Because of that slightly bigger screen, better battery life, faster charging, overall, I think the Honor 90, if it were my only phone, I would probably go for the Honor 90. But I don't live a single smartphone world. The Google Pixel 7a is a great all-round device. It's not as good as the Honor 90 in some ways, but it is better in others. And alongside my Google Pixel 7 Pro and my iPhone 14 Pro, the Google Pixel 7a fills that gap of a easy to use, good camera phone for things like nights out or situations where I want to have a lightweight phone and I'm not going to be using my phone that much. So each to their own. If you have any opinions on that, or if you disagree with me, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. But that was a quick run through of the overall performance, specifications, setup of the two devices, and my opinions on it. Both are really, really good smartphones. It's really good for us to be in a situation where the premium mid-range has got to the point where it's really difficult to justify why you would go and buy a full smartphone when you have devices like the Honor 90, the Google Pixel 7a, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, and so forth. The premium mid-range is a really interesting space to look at because the trickle-down featurenomics, let's call it that, from flagships to the premium mid-range is happening much faster than expected, and the overall experience is great. Ultimately, the brand, the look, what your use are all important factors in your buying decisions, We'll link in this section below to where you can purchase these two devices on Amazon. Obviously, if you buy from there, you'll be supporting the Tech Travel Geeks. We'll also link to our other content about these devices, so you can check out that if you're interested. Anyway, thanks for watching if you made it this far. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. We cover consumer electronics, gadgets, accessories, and anything else we think makes the travel experience better. But for now, thank you for watching, and goodbye from me.